The Game Within the Child is a resource for soccer parents and coaches. The 2-minute technique will allow inexperienced coaches to more effectively transfer information from practice to game. Back when I first earned my A license, I had the pleasure of doing the last session, and my session was on high pressure defending. I had a bunch of tired players, and they kept missing the cues for when to step up and high pressure their opponent. The lead instructor, came over to me and he said, "If they don't score in the next 5 minutes, you're fired." I took that to mean I'm probably going to fail the course. So the next time they had the opportunity to do it, I stopped the action, I did a corrective movement with them, talked about what they needed to do, find the cues, and luckily for me, the next time it happened, they stepped up, they pressured, they won the ball, they scored a goal, and I got my A license. First became familiar with the term separating the signal from the noise through the work of Nate Silver, founder of 538. 538 is a website that analyzes data from politics, sports, science and health, culture, basically a whole lot of different areas. And what they're going to do is they're going to take the information, which is the noise, all that data, and then they're going to come down to some common patterns. That's the signal. And I know that one of the problems that we have, especially inexperienced coaches, is that the soccer game and practice, especially the scrimmage, are data rich. There's a whole lot of information that's coming out of there, and we can't really separate the signal from the noise. And so unlike Nate Silver, where we're going to take the data and we're going to identify what the common patterns are, what I think we want to do here and to help our coaches out, especially our inexperienced coaches, is we want to have them choose what the signal is going to be before they get started. And that is, you're going to be working on something, let's say in a practice, say a tactic or a dribbling move. And what you want to do is you want to focus on that particular thing during the data-rich environment, the practice, scrimmage, or the game, and then you're going to analyze how the kids do during that time. And so we're going to be separating the signal from the noise a little bit different than what Nate Silver does, but the idea is going to be the same. You're going to be limiting what you're doing to just a small subset of what is going on in the actual game so that you can be more focused in what you're doing. And the way that we're going to do that is something that I call the 2-minute technique. I don't know when I began to be able to separate the signal from the noise, but apparently it happened before that course, so I have no recollection of what I was like before then to watch a game and be able to see what was going on either with an individual player or with a group of players. The succeeding years have only allowed me to have a greater perspective on being able to see the game, the individual parts of the game, and what individual players were doing. Being able to get the less experienced coaches I work with to do that has not been quite so successful. In my regular job as a high school teacher, I learned about this technique called the top 10 things. Basically, what do you want people to know or learn from your class over the next year, in my case, 180 days, that they're going to actually stick with them and remember. And it's probably not going to be 1,000 things or even 100 things, but maybe 10 things. And those 10 things were things you emphasized over and over. You talked about them, you connected them with prior things, you assessed on them, and at the end of the year, hopefully, or actually 5 years later, hopefully, they would be able to recall what those top 10 things were, or at least some of them. In the coaching courses I teach, I don't have the luxury of time. So instead of the top 10 things, I have to focus on the most important top 2, possibly top 3 things that are really going to have an impact on coaching practice. My top 3 skills are how to organize a practice from beginning to end. And then the second most important thing is managing the practice to maximize playing time so that players get maximum touches on the ball under pressure situations. And finally, coaching skills, like managing players and seeing and making your point at every level of a practice. The topic most inexperienced coaches struggle with is coaching skills. So let's say you've been focusing on dribbling at your practices this week, a particular form of dribbling move like a pullback, and you get into a game situation and you want to see whether or not your players can do a pullback at the right time. Well, it turns out that most coaches only see the game and they don't see the point where a player did choose to do that and it worked, or didn't choose to do it and could have done it, and are not able to identify that and talk to the player about how and when to use that particular move. So my solution is the 2-minute technique. So let's say that you have a scrimmage that lasts 20 minutes and you have 10 players on your team. Instead of looking at the whole game and everything that's going on and trying to coach everything, just simply take 2 minutes to look at every player and just focus on that player for 2 minutes. What are they doing during that time? What could they be doing during that time? And then focus on what you would tell that player when you're done. So make notes about what's going on. If you do that for 20 minutes, then you're going to have detailed notes about every player that you can then go back and talk to them about it, and you can set reasonable expectations for what you'd like to see at the next practice or in the next game. We all have smartphones with video cameras now, and if you really want to do a good job as a coach, one of the things that you can do is, instead of just making notes, is take a video of that individual player. If you took that 3 times during a season, beginning, middle, and end of the season, you could literally see how that player was progressing. So in the next video, focus on one player. Based on the information from the video, what might you suggest for the next few sessions for his team? Remember, focus on one player. In this case, we're looking at dribbling moves. Does the player attempt to take on somebody using a dribbling move? Was he successful? What move did he choose to do? Was it a good move for that situation? Those are the kinds of things that you can use to evaluate that player at that time. Not only can you use the video to evaluate individual players, you can also use it in practice to paint the picture of what you're trying to do with the players for a specific aspect of the game. It's a very powerful technique for instruction. The more you practice it, the more you're going to see which players are doing well and what they're doing poorly. You can also see the effect of your coaching on their technique. And if this is one of those things that you use repeatedly throughout a year and over multiple seasons, you can really be able to measure the growth of your players, and you can measure your growth as a coach. So in summary, one of the most difficult things to do as a coach is to try and identify a specific thing that occurs during a game situation. Instead of getting lost in all the things that are happening during a game and coaching the game, instead focus on coaching the technique or the skill or the tactic that you focused on during your training sessions. And what you'll find is that there's a much greater transfer between practice and game, and that your players will see that the game situations are going to be similar to what you're doing in the practice, and they're going to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Try it out, tell me what you think, and comment below. Thank you.